full moon, red as if blood oozes from it. Moonlight shines down on Baghdad's mud brick walls at night, making the night as bright as day. He discreetly follows his wife as she walked through alleyways without a lamp. The woman appears calm as she strolls towards the cemetery. There were soon others joining her. He stood behind a palm tree. With their claws, the woman and her companions opened the grave. Then they ate a half-rotten body. What the man saw with his horrifying eyes was a group of ghouls having a night feast in the burial ground. They laughed and joked while eating rotten meat. He was terrified, his heart pounding like a hammer. Before I begin this story, I should tell a bit about different djinns. There isn't much agreement on how djinns are classified. However, the simplest way to classify them is good and evil. But in Middle Eastern cultures, there are many categories of djinns. For example, in Arabic folklore, djinn who choose to live next to humans or interact with them are known as ammar. Young djinn are called arwah. Djinn who have evil intentions are called shaitan. And the more powerful djinn leaders are known as Efreet or Ghoul. As in Western lore, ghouls are cannibalistic, blood-drinking, cemetery-haunting creatures. The story goes that a wealthy merchant lived in Baghdad. He only had one son, Abul Hassan. The old businessman loved his son very much. He had decided to arrange for his son to marry the daughter of a rich businessman. He picked a girl who was rich from her dad, but she wasn't attractive. In order to think about his decision more carefully, Abul Hassan asked his father for some time. It is clear that something is wrong. As it turned out, Abul Hassan had already fallen in love with Nadia. It seems that his son can't get his heart out of the beautiful Nadia despite his father's best efforts. It was clear to Abul Hassan that he would only marry Nadia. The father finally had to do what the most fathers do in this situation. Eventually, Nadia and Abul Hassan got married in a beautiful wedding ceremony. The night after the wedding, Abul Hassan noticed that his new bride had gotten up and left the room. Nadia did not return to bed that night until sunrise. Abul Hassan, who was curious to see what his wife was doing at this time of the night, put himself to sleep the next night. Nadia left the room as soon as she saw her husband asleep. Nadia walked without any fear in the back alleys of the city. She approached the cemetery very carefully and slowly. The woman entered the cemetery and Abul Hassan followed her. It was a moonlit night and Abul Hassan could see inside the cemetery. The man followed his wife into the cemetery. Abul Hassan took refuge behind an old palm tree. There, he saw a bunch of ghouls sitting next to a grave. In the horrified eyes of Abul Hassan, Nadia along with the rest of the ghouls held pieces of rotten flesh from a dead body and bit them. Some of them laughed and joked with each other as they took bites of half-rotten meat. In the midst of his panic, Abul Hassan realized how much Nadia was eating. But for as long as he can remember, he forced her food at home. Abul Hassan went back home scared. He went to bed, still confused. He didn't know what to do, so he pretends he doesn't know anything and goes to sleep. Abul Hassan waited until dinner the next evening to talk to his new bride. As usual at dinner, Nadia did not touch her food, despite her husband's insistence. Abul Hassan repeatedly urged her to eat. After Nadia rejected her husband's last request, as he grew impatient, Abul Hassan yelled, "Surely you left your appetite for the ghoul's party." While Nadia trembled and paled, she said nothing. In the end, he got up from the table and went to sleep without saying a word. A little while later, Nadia got up and threw herself on him. She tried to tear his throat with sharp teeth and long nails. She wanted to taste his blood. However, Abul Hassan quickly got up and hit her on the ground. Axe had been placed next to the bed, especially for this purpose, so he hit Nadia's head with it. The axe's blow was so strong that the blade went halfway into her skull. The woman was killed on the spot. The next day, woman's body was buried in the cemetery. 3 days later, at midnight, while everyone was asleep, a pale-faced woman entered Abul Hassan's bedroom. Abul Hassan woke up hearing the door open and close. As he looked under the oil lamp, he knew that he was not alone in the room. He saw the face of his late wife Nadia. Again, she attacked her husband and tried to drink his blood. However, Abul Hassan fled this time. The next morning, Abul Hassan and his family opened her grave. Outside the grave, a huge fire was lit and the ghoul's body was set ablaze. The body of Abul Hassan's wife burned until nothing was left. With tears in his eyes, he watched everything. Later, they collected the ashes and poured them into the Tigris River.